Sometimes the most profound stories come to us not from imagination, but from the intersection of human cruelty and unexpected grace. This tale emerged from conversations with retired park rangers across the Pacific Northwest. Men and women who've witnessed things in the wilderness that challenge our comfortable assumptions about the line between human and animal, between law and justice. What you're about to read isn't about heroism in the traditional sense. There are no medals here, no parades. It's about an aging man who broke every rule he'd spent 40 years upholding, and in doing so, discovered that sometimes the wilderness we need to navigate isn't out there in the forest, but within our own calcified hearts. This is their story, told through the lens of one unforgettable storm, one irreversible choice, and 3 solids that depended on both. 4 in the goddamn morning, and Frank Morrison's patrol truck was sliding sideways through 6 inches of water that hadn't been there an hour ago. The Category 3 storm had made landfall earlier than predicted, catching everyone with their pants down, including whoever had abandoned the riverside warehouse in such a hurry they'd left the gate swinging wide. Frank grabbed his maglite and stepped into water that immediately filled his boots. 28 years of marriage to Sarah had taught him that the sound now reaching his ears, that broken, rattling wheeze, was the sound of something dying. The flashlight beam cut through the rain and found it, black fur plastered against visible ribs, blood mixing with rainwater in pink rivulets, a chain wrapped 3 times around a steel post, the other end buried in the flesh of a neck rubbed raw. The leopard, Jesus Christ. An actual black leopard didn't snarl when the light hit her eyes, didn't bare her teeth, just looked at him, then at something to her left, then back at him. Frank followed her gaze. A Coleman cooler, the red kind he'd used for fishing since the 80s, with holes punched crudely through the lid. From inside came a sound that made his chest tighten, the mewing of cubs, 3, maybe 4 weeks old from the pitch. The mother leopard's paw pads were torn to shreds. She'd tried to dig under the fence, probably for hours. The concrete was scored with claw marks, her broken nails embedded in the scratches. When she looked back at him, Frank saw something in those golden eyes he'd only seen once before in a Vietnamese village in 1973, in the eyes of a mother whose children were trapped in a burning building. Not fear, not aggression. Just the terrible weight of knowing you couldn't save what you loved most. Frank's hands moved to his belt, to the bolt cutters hanging there. The leopard watched him approach. Her breathing labored, rattling like a broken accordion. She could still kill him even weakened, even chained. One swipe of those claws across his throat, but she didn't move, didn't even tense. Just watched him raise the tool to the chain. The bolt cutters were useless. The chain was industrial grade, probably rated for 3 tons. Frank tried 3 times, his 68-year-old arm shaking with effort before throwing the tool aside. "Hang on," he said to the leopard, knowing how insane he sounded. "Just hang on." He slogged back to the truck, knee locking up in the cold water, and grabbed the winch cable. The warehouse had a loading dock with steel support beams. If he could loop the cable around one, use the truck's winch to bend the fence post. The leopard watched him work, her eyes following every movement as he secured the cable. The truck's engine roared as the winch engaged. The fence post groaned, bent, and finally snapped at the base with a sound like a gunshot. The chain went slack. The leopard collapsed. Frank rushed back, expecting her to flee or attack. Instead, she actually crawled on her belly through the mud toward the cooler. 6 feet? That's as far as she made it before her legs gave out completely. The cubs' cries were getting weaker. Frank lifted the cooler lid. 3 cubs, maybe 8 weeks old, huddled in a nest of shredded newspaper. One had an infected eye sealed shut with pus. Another's rear leg was bent at an impossible angle, an old break that had healed wrong. The third was so still, Frank thought it was dead, until he saw the tiny rise and fall of its chest. The mother leopard was watching him handle her babies. Any second, he expected her to find some reserve of strength and tear into him. Instead, she made a sound he'd never heard from a big cat, a soft chirping, like she was trying to comfort them, or asking him to. Frank wrapped the cubs in his uniform jacket, their combined weight less than a Thanksgiving turkey. The mother tried to stand when he approached her, managed to get her front legs under her before collapsing again. "I'm going to have to drag you too," he told her, pulling the camping tarp from his truck bed. "It's going to hurt like hell." She didn't fight him as he worked the tarp under her body, didn't resist as he dragged her through the mud to the truck. She weighed maybe 60 pounds, half what she should. Her ribs were like washboard ridges under his hands. Loading her into the truck bed took everything Frank had left. His back screamed, his bad knee nearly buckled, but he got her up. She immediately focused on the cooler he'd placed beside her, one paw reaching toward it, despite the obvious pain the movement caused. Frank put the cooler against her side. She curled around it as best she could, her body shaking from cold, from shock, from God knew what else. The drive back to his cabin was 8 miles of pure hell. Trees were coming down across the road. Water was rising fast. Twice he had to get out and use the chainsaw to clear fallen branches. Each time he checked on the leopard. Each time she was in the same position, curled around that cooler like it was the only thing anchoring her to life, which it probably was. Frank's cabin materialized through the rain like something from a fever dream. Single story, state issued. The kitchen roof leaking steadily into the pot he'd positioned there 3 months ago and never emptied. He backed the truck as close to the front door as possible. The leopard didn't fight him as he dragged her inside on the tarp, didn't protest as he positioned her near the wood stove. When he placed the cooler beside her and opened it so she could see the cubs, she made that chirping sound again, weaker this time. Frank's emergency medical supplies consisted of hydrogen peroxide, Band-Aids, and half a bottle of veterinary antibiotics Martha had given him for his old dog before it died. He grabbed what he could, then stopped, really looking at the scene in his living room. A black leopard, an endangered exotic, almost certainly illegally trafficked black leopard, was bleeding on his floor. Her cubs were dying in a beer cooler. He was about to commit career suicide. Throw away his pension, probably go to federal prison. Sarah would have already been heating milk for the cubs. Frank tore bedsheets into strips for bandages. The leopard's neck wound was infected, probably had been for days. The smell made him gag, rot, and metal, and something else, something chemical. As he cleaned the wound, she watched him with those golden eyes, her body trembling but never pulling away. That's when he saw it. Embedded in the infected flesh, partially hidden by matted fur, was a small metal cylinder no bigger than a cigarette butt. Frank had seen something similar once before, during a joint operation with federal agents, a tracking chip, military grade, the kind used by intelligence agencies. His hands stilled on the bandage. This wasn't just an abandoned exotic pet. This was something else entirely. Something that had people willing to chain a nursing mother in a storm rather than risk moving her. The leopard's eyes met his. In them he saw his own realization reflected. They were both in deeper trouble than either had imagined. Outside, through the storm's fury, Frank heard the distinctive thrum of a helicopter rotor. At 4:30 in the morning, in a Category 3 storm, someone was coming for their property. The mother leopard heard it too. She struggled to her feet, placing herself between the door and her cubs, her legs shaking, but her intent clear. Frank reached for his grandfather's shotgun, knowing it would be as useful as a fly swatter against whoever was coming. The helicopter was getting closer. Through the window, he could see a searchlight cutting through the rain, sweeping the forest, heading straight for his cabin. The tracking chip. They were following the tracking chip. Frank looked at the dying cubs, at their mother ready to make her last stand, at the searchlight now painting his front yard in harsh white light. He made his choice. Before we continue, please leave a like and subscribe. Let me know which city you're watching from. Now, let's get back to the story. The searchlight hit the window. Frank dropped to his knees, shotgun scraping across the pine floor. Sarah had insisted they refinish themselves, her last project, before the cancer took hold. The helicopter's rotors hammered the air, rattling the framed photos on the mantel. Sarah at their wedding. Sarah, with her first rescue, a three-legged foxhound named Chester. Frank crawled to the kitchen, his bad knee grinding bone on bone. The tracking chip sat on the counter where he'd dropped it, still slick with blood and pus. He grabbed the meat tenderizer from the drawer and smashed the chip until only metallic powder remained, swept it into his palm, dumped it down the sink. The helicopter circled. The searchlight swept past, moved on, came back. They'd lost the signal. Frank's hands shook as he filled a pot with water, not from fear, from rage that made his molars ache. The cubs needed formula. Evaporated milk, egg yolk, corn syrup, Sarah's recipe, written on an index card taped inside the cupboard door. Her handwriting, still there after 2 years, like she might walk in and check if he was mixing it right. The helicopter moved off, sound fading east toward the warehouse. Frank tested the formula temperature on his wrist. The mother leopard watched him from her position by the door, her body a trembling barrier between the world and her cubs. When he approached with the bottles, 3 beer bottles with nipples from the feed store meant for orphaned goats, she didn't move aside. "Your babies need this," Frank said. She held his gaze for 3 seconds, then shifted just enough to let him reach the cooler. The first cub, the one with the infected eye, wouldn't latch. Its mouth was cold. Frank rubbed its chest with his thumb, the way he'd seen Sarah do with hypothermic raccoons. The cub gasped, tiny pink tongue visible, then began to suck weakly. The second cub, the one with the broken leg, fed better. The third cub wasn't breathing. Frank placed it on his palm. It weighed less than his coffee mug. He compressed its chest with 2 fingers, counting the way Sra had taught him. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. Nothing. Again, the mother leopard made that chirping sound, urgent now. 1 and 2 and 3 and... The cub coughed. Milk and mucus sprayed across Frank's wrist. It took a shuddering breath, then another. The mother leopard's tail twitched. Just once, Frank's cell phone buzzed on the coffee table. The screen lit up with a text from an unknown number. "Mr. Morrison, we know you have them. 20 minutes. 20 minutes. Frank's thumb hovered over the phone screen. "Call 911, call the sheriff." His reflection stared back from the black glass, 3 days of gray stubble, eyes bloodshot from no sleep, the deep groove between his eyebrows that Sarah used to smooth with her thumb. The mother leopard's breathing changed, rapid, shallow pants. Her gums were white when she yawned. Blood loss, shock, both. The infected wound on her neck had soaked through the makeshift bandage. Frank could smell it from 6 feet away, sweet rot mixed with the iron tang of fresh blood. He grabbed Sarah's veterinary kit from the hall closet, the one he'd never had the heart to throw out. Suture thread, expired. Lidocaine, 2 years past date. Surgical scissors that Sarah had sharpened herself on the whetstone in the garage. The leopard's eyes tracked him as he knelt beside her. Her pupils were different sizes. Concussion, maybe, or something worse. Frank's fingers found her pulse at the inside of her thigh, racing, thready, skipping beats. "This is going to hurt," he said. He peeled back the bandage. The chain had cut deep, through muscle, maybe nicking the jugular, not enough to kill her quickly, just enough to make her bleed out over hours, days, maybe. The tissue around the wound was black at the edges, necrotic. Frank's hands remembered things his mind had tried to forget. Firebase Alpha. The kid couldn't have been more than 19 with shrapnel in his neck. The way you had to debride dead tissue or infection would take the whole thing. The way they screamed even through the morphine. He didn't have morphine. The leopard watched him cut away the dead flesh with Sarah's scissors, her body rigid, claws extending and retracting. But she didn't fight, didn't pull away, just kept her body curved around that cooler like nothing else existed. Frank's cell phone buzzed. Another text. 15 minutes. He irrigated the wound with the rest of the hydrogen peroxide. The leopard's tail lashed once, caught the coffee table leg. Sarah's nursing textbook fell open to a page on emergency field medicine, her highlighting still visible in faded yellow. The sutures were ugly. Frank's hands weren't steady. Hadn't been since Sarah's last month, when he'd held her morphine drip and watched her decide when to press the button and when to save it for worse pain that was always coming. But the stitches held. The bleeding slowed. 10 minutes. Frank mixed more formula. The cub with the infected eye was fading, its sucking reflex gone. Body temperature dropping despite the wood stove cranking out heat. He tucked it inside his shirt, against his skin. Sarah used to do that with orphaned squirrels. Heartbeat and warmth, she'd say. Sometimes that's all they need to remember they're alive. The cub with the broken leg was crying, not the healthy mewl of a hungry infant, but the pitched keen of agony. The bone had broken through the skin compound fracture, probably infected. Without proper veterinary care, without surgery, without antibiotics that actually worked. 8 minutes. Frank heard engines. Not helicopters this time. Trucks. Multiple trucks, diesel heavy, coming up the access road that was supposed to be flooded out. The mother leopard heard them too. She struggled upright, made it to 3 legs before the 4th buckled. Frank saw what he'd missed before her right rear leg was twisted at the hip, dislocated. She'd been dragging it this whole time. "You can't fight them," Frank said. She looked at him, then at the door, then back at him. Her message clear as spoken words. "Then you do it." Frank's grandfather's shotgun held 5 shells, birdshot, mostly, for scaring off the occasional bear. 1 slug that had been in there so long the brass had turned green. Not enough to stop whoever was coming. Not nearly enough. But the propane tank beside the wood stove was almost full. The jerry cans of gasoline in the garage for the generator, the truck parked right against the front door with 3/4 of a tank. 5 minutes. Frank grabbed the emergency pack from the hall closet. Flares, first aid kit, space blankets, water purification tablets, everything Sarah had insisted on after they'd gotten stranded in that ice storm in 2009. He dumped it all out, started repacking, formula powder, the rest of the antibiotics, Sarah's surgical kit, the cubs wrapped in kitchen towels. The mother leopard watched him prepare to run with her babies. "I'm not taking them," Frank said, though his hands kept packing. "We're all going." She tried to stand again, made it halfway before her front legs gave out. The impact when she hit the floor rattled the dishes in the kitchen cabinet. She tried again, failed again. The engines were getting closer. Frank could see headlights through the trees, bouncing as the trucks navigated the washed-out road. 3 minutes. He dragged the camping tarp over, the same one he'd used to pull her from the warehouse. The mother leopard looked at it, at him, at her cubs in his pack. She crawled onto the tarp on her own, using her front claws to pull herself forward. Frank grabbed the corners of the tarp, his back screaming as he started to drag. She had to weigh more than 60 pounds. Muscle and bone didn't just disappear. Even with starvation, maybe 80, maybe 90. His knee locked, unlocked, locked again. See, the back door was 40 feet away. Through the kitchen, past Sarah's herbs still dying in their pots on the windowsill, past the breakfast table where they'd planned their retirement that would never come. 1 minute. Frank dragged faster. The mother leopard's weight seemed to increase with each step. His lower back was on fire. Something popped in his shoulder. The headlights were in his driveway now, doors slamming, voices shouting orders. He reached the back door just as someone started pounding on the front. "Mr. Morrison, federal agents, open the door." Frank looked down at the mother leopard. She was looking back at him, her eyes steady despite the pain she had to be in, trusting him. This apex predator, who should have torn his throat out the moment he freed her from that chain, was trusting him to save her cubs. The pounding got louder. "We have a warrant." Frank could see their shadows through the front window. At least 6 men, armed. From the outline of their stance, they weren't here to help. They were here to retrieve property. He made his choice. Frank opened the back door, grabbed the tarp, and pulled the mother leopard out into the storm. The rain hit like ice pellets. Within seconds, he couldn't see more than 10 feet. Behind them, he heard the front door splinter. They had maybe 30 seconds before the agents realized they'd gone out the back. 30 seconds to disappear into 40,000 acres of national forest that Frank knew better than anyone alive. But the mother leopard wasn't moving anymore. Frank knelt beside her, put his hand on her chest, still breathing, but barely. That's when he noticed the blood trail, bright red in the porch light, leading straight from the door to where they crouched, a perfect path for anyone to follow. The mother leopard's eyes opened. She looked at the blood, then at Frank, then did something that stopped his heart. She smiled, actually smiled, lips pulling back from her teeth in an expression that was unmistakably human. Then Frank saw why. The blood trail didn't stop at her. It continued past them, off the porch, splitting into 3 different directions, into the forest. While he'd been dragging her, she'd been using her claws to spread her blood, marking false trails in every direction. Inside the cabin, someone shouted. They went out the back. The mother leopard's tail touched Frank's wrist, once, twice, 3 times, 3 trails. 3 cubs, 3 choices, and only seconds to decide which one was real. Frank chose the middle trail, the one that led to the old growth where fallen cedars created natural shelters. His boots slipped on wet leaves as he dragged the tarp deeper into the darkness. Behind them, flashlight beams sliced through rain, voices shouting coordinates. The mother leopard's breathing was getting worse. Each inhale sounded like water through a broken straw. Frank's shoulders burned, his hands cramping on the tarp corners. 30 yards, 50. The cedars loomed ahead, massive trunks wider than his truck. Fan out. Check all 3 trails. Frank pulled harder. Under the first cedar now, its hollow base carved by a century of rain. He dragged the leopard inside, his back scraping bark. The space reeked of raccoon shit and molded wood. Water dripped steadily through gaps overhead. But the worst of the storm was blocked. The cub squirmed against his chest inside the pack. One was crying the soft, exhausted whimper of an infant running out of fight. Frank unzipped his jacket, checked them. The smallest one, the one he'd resuscitated, felt cold even against his sweat-soaked undershirt. Flashlights swept past their hiding spot. Frank pressed himself against the back wall, one hand over the cubs to muffle their sounds. The mother leopard's eyes reflected the distant light for a second before she closed them. Negative on trail 1. Trail 2 leads to the creek too deep to cross. Frank's legs started cramping from the crouch. His knee felt like someone had hammered a railroad spike through it. The mother leopard's head lolled to one side. He put his fingers against her neck, pulse still there, but weak. An hour passed, maybe 2. The voice faded, engine started, drove away. The storm kept pounding, but the immediate danger had passed. Frank waited another hour before moving. Gray dawn filtered through the trees when Frank finally dragged the leopard back to his cabin. The front door hung off its hinges. Muddy boot prints covered Sarah's hardwood floors. They'd torn the place apart, cushions slashed, drawers dumped, even Sarah's books scattered across the living room. The mother leopard was unconscious. Frank managed to get her onto the couch, what was left of it. The cubs needed warmth, formula, medical attention. Everything was destroyed or scattered. He found the formula powder under the overturned kitchen table, mixed it with bottled water the agents had shut off his main water line, fed the cubs one by one while sitting on the floor, his back against the wall. They were too weak to suck properly. More formula dribbled down their chins than went in their mouths. The mother leopard opened her eyes just as Frank was feeding the last cub. She tried to lift her head, managed an inch before giving up. The wound on her neck had opened during the escape. Blood seeped through the stitches, slow but steady. Frank used strips from Sarah's wedding dress still in the bedroom closet, untouched by the search, to rebandage the wound. The leopard watched him cut the white satin, her pupils tracking the scissors. When he pressed the fabric against her neck, she made a sound in her chest. Not quite a purr, more like a motor trying to start with bad plugs. Deputy Mike Thornton's cruiser crunched up the gravel drive at 7:30 a.m. while Frank was sitting on the porch steps with the shotgun across his knees, watching the road. He'd been there since 6, after boarding up the broken door and moving the leopards to the back bedroom. Mike stepped out, hand already resting on his Glock. 35 years old, divorce papers still fresh, child support eating half his paycheck. He needed this job like Frank needed his pension. Christ, Frank, your place looks like a war zone. Storm damage. Mike's eyes tracked the muddy boot prints leading in and out of the house. Too many for one man. Storm wearing size 11 tactical boots these days? Frank said nothing. Got a report about suspicious activity at the warehouse last night. Abandoned property, possible theft. Mike stepped closer. You wouldn't know anything about that, would you? I was here all night, storm and all. Mike's jaw worked like he was chewing tobacco he'd quit 6 months ago. Funny thing, someone reported seeing your truck down there around 4 a.m. Someone was mistaken. Frank, Mike moved his hand to his radio. Don't do this. Whatever you've got in there. A cry came from inside the house. High, plaintive, unmistakably not human. Mike's hand went to his weapon. What the hell was that? Frank stood, keeping the shotgun pointed at the ground, but visible. Mike, you got 2 choices, help or leave. You know I can't. Another cry, weaker this time. That's a baby something, Mike said. Frank, what did you do? I did what you'd do if you found something left to die in a storm. Mike's hand hovered over his radio. Frank could see him working through it, call it in, follow protocol, keep his job, or walk away, pretend he was never here. Mike lifted the radio. Dispatch, this is Unit 7. Frank's finger found the shotgun's safety. Unit 7, go ahead. Mike stared at Frank. Frank stared back. The radio crackled with static. Dispatch, I'm at the Morrison property. Storm damage extensive, but—" Mike's thumb hesitated on the transmit button. "Lost signal. We'll report back when weather clears." He lowered the radio, not breaking eye contact with Frank. "You've got maybe 6 hours before someone else comes looking. Whatever's in there, it better be worth your pension." Mike turned back to his cruiser. Stopped. "My kid loves animals. Always has. Gets it from her mother." He didn't turn around. "Martha Greenwood mentioned she had extra antibiotics from her horses. The kind that works on big animals. Thought you should know." The cruiser backed down the drive, tires finning in the mud. Martha arrived 20 minutes later in her ancient Ford pickup, rust eating through the wheel wells. 72 years old, lived on disability. And what she grew? In her greenhouse, tomatoes in front, marijuana in back. She didn't knock, just walked through the broken door carrying a medical kit older than Mike. She stopped dead when she saw the mother leopard. Jesus, Mary, and Joseph. Martha. "Shut up, Frank." She was already kneeling beside the couch, checking the wound. "This needs real sutures, not this field hospital crap. How long since she ate?" "I don't know, days, maybe." Martha opened her kit, pulled out vials and syringes. "These antibiotics are strong. Might kill her if she's too weak. Might kill her if we don't try." She looked at Frank. "Your call?" Frank thought about the cubs in the back bedroom, crying weaker with each passing hour. "Do it." The injection went into the muscle of the leopard's shoulder. She didn't even flinch. Martha stood, knees popping. "Bobby Chen's been monitoring the scanner all night. Says federal agents were all over the warehouse. Says they're looking for someone who stole evidence." "Is that what they're calling it?" "That's what they're calling it." Martha pulled out her phone. "Frank, Bobby wants to come document this. Says people need to know." "No." Frank took the phone, set it on the counter. "No documentation, no pictures. Frank, if people knew, there'd be 40 trucks in my driveway, half wanting to help, half wanting to shoot them." Martha looked at the mother leopard, at the blood seeping through Sarah's wedding dress bandage. "She's dying." "Frank, I know." "The cubs." "I know." Martha picked up her phone, started typing. "Not calling anyone. Just letting people know you're okay. Storm damage and all." Frank went to check on the cubs. Through the bedroom window, he could see 3 pickup trucks slow rolling past his property line. One stopped, idled for 30 seconds, drove on. When he came back, Martha was heating water on the camp stove. His electric was still out. "That's Tom Bradley's truck out there. 3rd time he's passed. Sheriff's checking up on me. Or deciding what to do." Martha added formula powder to the water. "Frank, you can't keep them here. You know that, right?" Frank looked at the mother leopard, her breathing so shallow he had to watch for 10 seconds to confirm she was still alive. "I can't move her. I'm not talking about moving her." The mother leopard's eye opened. Just one. She looked at Frank, at Martha, at the bottles Martha was preparing. Her tail twitched toward the back bedroom where her cubs cried. "She knows," Martha said quietly. "Animals always know." The phone in Frank's pocket buzzed. Text from an unknown number different from last night. "Mr. Morrison, we can do this easy or hard. You have something that doesn't belong to you." Frank showed it to Martha. She read it, handed it back. "What are you going to do?" Frank looked at the leopard. Her one open eye was fixed on him, waiting. The eye of a mother who'd fought past what should have killed her, held on past what was possible, for one reason only. "Sarah would have known what to do," Frank said. Martha snorted. "Sarah would have already done it and told you about it later." Another truck passed outside. Stopped. Backed up. Someone was taking pictures through the trees. Frank's phone rang. Sheriff Bradley's number. "Frank, you need to answer your door in about 2 minutes. And whatever you've got in there, you better have a good explanation." The line went dead. Through the window, Frank could see Sheriff Bradley's cruiser turning into his driveway. Behind him, 2 more vehicles. Not federal agents this time, animal control. Sheriff Tom Bradley stood in Frank's destroyed living room, looking at the mother leopard on what was left of the couch. 55 years old, 6 months from retirement, belly hanging over his duty belt from too many gas station burritos. Behind him, 2 animal control officers waited with catch poles and a tranquilizer gun. "Frank," Tom's voice was flat, "you want to explain why there's a dead leopard on your couch?" "She's not dead." Tom stepped closer, studied the shallow rise of her chest. "Might as well be." He turned to the animal control officers. "Tag her," and the mother leopard's eye opened, fixed on Tom. Her lip pulled back, showing a canine the length of Frank's thumb. Tom's hand went to his sidearm. "Jesus." "She's protecting her cubs," Frank said. "Cubs." Tom's face went red. "Plural, Frank, what the fuck?" A cry came from the back bedroom, weak, pitiful. The smallest cub was getting worse. Martha came out carrying it, wrapped in a dish towel. "This one's not going to make it without a vet." Tom stared at the bundle in Martha's arms. "That's evidence in a federal trafficking case." "That's a baby dying of pneumonia," Martha said. The cub wheezed, fluid rattling in its tiny lungs. Frank could see its chest working too hard, the spaces between its ribs sucking in with each breath. Respiratory distress. He'd seen it in Vietnam, in kids exposed to Agent Orange. "Protocol says we tranquilize and transport," one of the animal control officers said. Young guy, maybe 25. Name tag read, "Jensen. You tranquilize a cub this sick, it won't wake up," Martha said. "Not my problem." Frank grabbed Jensen's tranquilizer gun, yanked it from his hands. "It is now—" Tom stepped between them. "Frank, give the weapon back." "Tom, you know what they'll do. They'll put them all down. Say they're too sick, too dangerous, too expensive. That's not my call. Since when has that stopped you from making it?" Tom's jaw clenched. They both remembered the meth lab fire last year. The kid trapped inside. Tom had gone in against direct orders, saved the boy, lost his chance at chief, never mentioned it again. The mother leopard tried to lift her head, managed 2 inches. Her eye found her cub in Martha's arms. She made that chirping sound, barely audible. "Fuck." Tom pulled out his phone. "I'm calling Emma Rodriguez." "She won't come," Frank said. "Not for this. She could lose her license." "She'll come." Tom hit dial. "Emma? Tom Bradley? Yeah, I know what time it is. Listen, I've got a situation at Frank Morrison's place. No, he's fine. But—" He walked up to the corner, voice dropping. Jensen reached for his tranquilizer gun. Frank still had it. "Sir, I need that back." "You'll get it when the vet gets here." "That's not how this works." The mother leopard's breathing changed. Faster, shallower. Her eye rolled back, showing white. Martha grabbed Frank's arm. "She's seizing." The leopard's body went rigid, back arching. Foam tinged with blood appeared at her mouth. Her claws extended, raking gouges in what was left of the couch cushions. Frank dropped to his knees beside her, tried to hold her head steady. Her teeth snapped an inch from his hand, not aggression, involuntary muscle spasms. "How long?" Tom asked. 15 seconds. Martha counted. 20, 25. The seizing stopped. The leopard went limp, breathing gone. Frank put his ear to her chest. Nothing, nothing. Then a flutter, another. Weak, but there. "She's back," Frank said. Tom ended his call. "Emma's coming. 20 minutes. He looked at the animal control officers. "You two wait outside." "Sir, we have orders." "I said wait outside." Jensen looked like he wanted to argue. His partner, older, tugged his sleeve. They left. Tom sat heavily in Frank's recliner, one of the Xiaomi pieces of furniture still intact. "Frank, what really happened at that warehouse?" Frank told him. "The chains, the infected wounds, the cubs in a cooler with air holes." Tom listened without interrupting. "Federal agents were here last night," Tom said. It wasn't a question. "Yeah, they're saying you stole evidence worth $500,000. They're saying a lot of things." Tom rubbed his face. "There's more. Bobby Chen's been digging. These aren't just any leopards. They're part of some conservation program, genetic preservation, some shit like that." The smallest cub coughed in Martha's arms. Wet, productive. Blood specked the dish towel. They were supposed to go to the San Diego Zoo. Tom continued. "Never made it. Transport company says they delivered them. Zoo says they never arrived." Frank felt something cold in his stomach. "Someone sold them! Someone sold them! And now that someone wants them back, dead or alive." A car pulled up outside. Door slammed. Emma Rodriguez came through the broken door carrying 2 medical bags. 45 years old. Sarah's colleague before Sarah got too sick to work, dark circles under her eyes, hair pulled back in a ponytail that hadn't been washed in days. She stopped when she saw the leopard. "Tom, you said injured animal. You didn't say, 'Will you help or not?'" Frank asked. Emma looked at him, really looked. Frank knew what she saw, a man who hadn't slept in 48 hours. Clothes stained with blood and formula, hands shaking from exhaustion and caffeine. "Sarah would never forgive me if I didn't." She was already moving, checking the mother leopard's vitals. "Jesus, she's septic. How long since the injury?" "Days, maybe a week." Emma pulled the supplies from her bag, IV line, bags of saline, antibiotics Frank couldn't pronounce. "Hold her head. If she seizes again, don't let her bite her tongue off." Emma worked fast, efficient. IV in on the first try, despite the dehydration making veins hard to find. Antibiotics pushed slow through the line. The mother leopard didn't react. Too far gone to care about needles. Now the cub. Martha brought the smallest one over. Emma listened to its chest with a stethoscope sized for dogs. Pneumonia, both lungs. Without oxygen, antibiotics won't be enough. "I don't have oxygen," Frank said. "I do. In my car. Portable unit for farm calls." Emma went out, came back with a clear plastic box and tubing. She rigged a makeshift oxygen tent using a cardboard box and plastic sheeting. Put the cub inside, adjusted the flow. "This might buy us a few hours." "That's all?" Martha asked. "Look at her." Emma pointed to the mother. "Sepsis, shock, probably organ failure starting. The cubs are premature, malnourished, hypothermic. I'm surprised any of them are still alive." The mother leopard's eye opened again, tracked to the box where her smallest cub lay under plastic, tiny chest working hard to breathe. She tried to chirp. No sound came out. "Frank," Emma said, pulling him aside, "I need to show you something." She led him to the kitchen, pulled a manila envelope from her bag. "Sarah gave me this 2 weeks before she died. Said to give it to you if you ever found yourself in trouble over animals." Frank opened it. Photos spilled out. Sarah with a rescued serval. Sarah treating an injured ocelot, Sarah bottle feeding what looked like tiger cubs. Pages of notes in her handwriting. "She did this for years," Emma said. "Rescued exotic animals from trafficking, rehabilitated them, found them proper homes." "I never knew." "She protected you, your job, your pension. She knew you'd have to report it." Frank read Sarah's notes. Detailed records of animals saved, contacts at legitimate sanctuaries, methods for emergency treatment, a whole secret life running parallel to their marriage. One note at the bottom, dated a month before her death. If Frank finds animals that need help, he'll do the right thing. He always does, even when it costs him. That's why I love him. She knew, Frank said. She knew this would happen. Maybe, or maybe she just knew you. Tom appeared in the doorway. We've got a problem. 3 more vehicles just pulled up. Federal agents. They've got a warrant. Through the window, Frank could see men in tactical vests positioning themselves around his property. The lead agent, tall, gray hair, expensive suit despite the mud, stood at the gate with papers in his hand. Mr. Morrison, the agent called through a bullhorn, this is Director Patterson, State Wildlife Authority. You have 2 minutes to surrender the animals peacefully. Frank looked at Emma, at Tom, at Martha still holding the dying cub. Through the doorway, he could see the mother leopard watching him, her one good eye steady, despite everything. What would Sarah do? Emma asked. Frank knew exactly what Sarah would do. The question was whether he had the courage to do it too. Tom, Frank said, you still got that reporter friend at Channel 9? Tom's eyes widened. Frank, no, you call media. This becomes a circus. It already is. Frank pulled out his phone. Might as well sell tickets. Director Patterson's voice boomed again. 1 minute, Mr. Morrison. Frank hit record on his phone's camera, pointed it at the mother leopard, her IV line, her cub struggling to breathe. Then he did something Sarah would have absolutely done. He hit live on Facebook. This is Frank Morrison. I'm a park ranger in Cascade State Forest, and I need your help. The view counter started climbing. 10, 50, 100. Patterson was walking up the driveway now. Agents flanking him. 300 views, 500, and climbing. This is a black leopard mother dying of sepsis, Frank said into his phone camera. Her cubs are 8 weeks old. One has pneumonia. Another has an untreated broken leg. They were chained in a warehouse during a Category 3 storm and left to die. The view counter hit 2,000. Comments scrolled past too fast to read. Director Patterson reached the destroyed front door, stopped when he saw the phone. His gray suit had mud splashed up to the knees. 62 years old, political appointee, never worked a day in actual wildlife management. His jaw muscle twitched. Mr. Morrison, you're interfering with a federal investigation. I'm documenting it. Frank kept the camera rolling. This is Director James Patterson, State Wildlife Authority. He wants to take these dying animals. Those animals are evidence? Evidence of what? Patterson's face reddened. Turn off the camera. No. 5,000 views. Someone had shared it to Reddit? The comments were coming faster. Patterson stepped through the doorway, 2 agents behind him. They stopped when they saw Tom Bradley in uniform, Emma in her veterinary coat, Martha still holding the dying cub. Sheriff, I need you to arrest this man. Tom shifted his weight, hand nowhere near his cuffs. On what charge? Theft of federal property, obstruction of justice, harboring. The mother leopard made a sound, not quite a growl, more like air escaping from a punctured tire. She tried to lift her head, managed an inch, eyes locked on Patterson. That animal is dangerous, Patterson said. It needs to be contained. She weighs 60 pounds and can't stand, Emma said. Real threatening? Patterson pulled out his phone, started making calls. I need a removal team here now. Full tactical response. And Frank kept streaming. 8,000 views. Channel 9's news van pulled up outside. Then Channel 4. Someone had called them. Director Patterson, but a reporter shouted from the yard. Is it true these leopards were part of the species survival plan? Patterson's head snapped around. No comment. Our sources say they were being illegally trafficked when, no comment, more vehicles arrived. Not just media now. Pickup trucks, cars, people from town. They formed a loose circle around Frank's property, watching Mrs. Henderson from the library, Jack Paulson, who ran the hardware store, families with kids in minivans. Bobby Chen pushed through the crowd, camera in hand. Sarah's nephew, 40 years old, lost his photography business in COVID, lived in his van now. He started taking pictures, the mother leopard's infected wounds, the IV lines, the cubs. "Bobby, stop," Patterson ordered. "Public property, public interest." Bobby kept shooting. "These are Amur leopards. Critically endangered, less than 100 left in the wild." "How do you know that?" Tom asked. Bobby showed his phone. Ran the coat pattern through image recognition. This mother is in the International Stud Book. She's literally irreplaceable. Patterson's phone rang. He answered, walked to the corner. Frank could hear fragments. "Yes, sir. Contained. Media situation. Under control." The smallest cub coughed inside its oxygen box. Blood splattered the plastic walls. Emma checked it, shook her head at Frank. "Minutes, maybe an hour." "We need to move them to my clinic," Emma said. "Now." "They're not going anywhere," Patterson said, ending his call. "Transport team is 3 minutes out." The mother leopard's breathing changed, rapid, shallow. Her good eye was dilating and contracting, dilating and contracting. "She's going into shock," Emma said. "Without proper ICU care, then you should have thought of that before getting involved." Frank's phone showed 15,000 viewers. Comments were tagging news organizations, animal rights groups, celebrities. The story was breaking wide. A black van pulled up. No windows, no markings. 4 men got out wearing tactical gear, carrying catch poles and tranquilizer rifles. "No," Frank said. "You're not touching them." "Mr. Morrison," Patterson said, "step aside or you'll be arrested." "Then arrest me." Tom moved to stand beside Frank. "You'll have to arrest me too." Martha joined them, still holding the dying cub. "And a 72-year-old woman with osteoporosis. That'll look great on the news." The crowd outside pressed closer. Someone started chanting, "Let them live." When others joined, the tactical team hesitated. Patterson's face was purple now. "This is ridiculous. They're just animals." "They're a mother and babies," someone shouted from the crowd. The lead tactical officer, name tag reading Hendricks, approached the mother leopard. She tried to move, dragging herself an inch toward her cubs. The effort split open 2 of her sutures. Fresh blood seeped through the bandage. Hendricks raised his tranquilizer rifle. The middle cub, the one with the broken leg, crawled out from behind the couch, maybe 10 pounds, dragging its twisted leg, mewing. It approached Hendricks, sniffed his boot, then did something extraordinary. It play-pounced the same way a house kitten would, butt wiggling, front paws batting at Hendricks's laces. Even with a broken leg, even sick, it wanted to play. Hendricks froze, rifle still raised. The cub grabbed his bootlace in its tiny teeth, tugged, fell over, tried again. Its purr was audible, even from where Frank stood, rough, uneven, but unmistakably content. "Shoot it," Patterson ordered. Hendricks didn't move. "That's an order." Hendricks lowered his rifle. "It's playing with my boot. It's evidence. It's a baby playing with my boot." The crowd outside pressed closer. Someone's kid, maybe 6 years old, had climbed on his father's shoulders for a better view. "Daddy, why do they want to hurt the kitty?" Every camera turned to Patterson. Frank's phone showed 30,000 viewers. The comments were brutal. Patterson's name was trending on Twitter. Someone had found his salary $195,000 a year. To manage wildlife he wanted to kill. Patterson grabbed the rifle from Hendricks, aimed at the mother leopard. Tom Bradley's hand went to his sidearm. "Sir," put the weapon down. I have federal authority, and I have jurisdiction. Put it down." The mother leopard was watching Patterson, her one good eye steady. No fear, just exhaustion. She'd fought as long as she could. The rest was up to them. Patterson's hands shook on the rifle. Sweat ran down his forehead despite the cold. His finger moved to the trigger. The largest cub emerged from behind the couch. It walked, wobbled, really directly to Patterson, sat down at his feet, looked up at him with gold eyes exactly like its mother's, and chirped, the same sound the mother had been making, the sound Sarah's notes had described, the trust call. Cubs make it to their mothers when they feel safe. The cub thought Patterson was safe. Patterson's finger came off the trigger. The rifle drooped. "Sir?" Hendricks asked. Patterson looked at the cub at his feet, at the dying mother, at the cameras recording everything. His phone was ringing nonstop. His boss, reporters, who knew? "I need to make a call," he said. He walked outside, past the crowd, past the news vans, phone pressed to his ear. Frank could see him pacing, gesturing, arguing with whoever was on the other end. Emma used the distraction to check the mother leopard again. Her temperature was dropping, pulse thready. The IV wasn't enough. "She needs blood," Emma said. "She's lost too much." "From where?" Frank asked. "You can't exactly." Emma was already pulling supplies from her bag. "We can try. Dog blood, universal donor, sometimes works with big cats, sometimes kills them." "Do it." Emma looked at Tom. "I need your dog, the German Shepherd. Rex. He's in the truck. Get him." Tom jogged out, came back with the Rex on a leash. 90 pounds of police dog, trained to attack on command. He took one look at the leopard, sat, whined. Emma drew blood from Rex's leg, filled 2 bags. The dog never moved, just watched the leopard with his head tilted. "This is insane," Martha said. "This whole thing is insane." Emma hung the blood bag, connected it to the IV. "If this kills her, she's dying anyway." The blood flowed dark through the tube. The mother leopard's eye tracked it, followed it down to where it entered her leg. Her breathing hitched, steadied, hitched again. Patterson came back in, phone still in hand. His face was gray. "I need everyone to hear this," he said, loud enough for the cameras. He hit speaker on his phone. A woman's voice, professional, cold. "Director Patterson, this is Federal Prosecutor Linda Walsh. I'm ordering you to stand down immediately." "Ma'am," Patterson's voice cracked. "The FBI just raided Pacific Wildlife Imports. We found records showing you signed off on fraudulent transport papers. You're under investigation for wildlife trafficking." The phone slipped from Patterson's hand, hit the floor. He stared at it like it might bite him. "Director Patterson," the voice continued from the floor, "you have the right to remain silent." 2 FBI agents pushed through the quad. Badges visible. Patterson didn't run, didn't argue, just held out his wrists for the cuffs. As they led him past the mother leopard, she opened both eyes. For the first time since Frank had found her, looked right at Patterson and smiled. The same expression Frank had seen when she was marking false trails with her blood, the look of an apex predator who knew exactly how the hunt would end. She'd been conscious for all of it, listening, waiting, playing dead while the real predators revealed themselves. The blood transfusion hit her heart. Her body convulsed. The mother leopard's spine arched backward until Frank heard vertebrae pop. Her claws raked grooves in the couch deep enough to hit springs. Foam erupted from her mouth, pink with blood. Emma grabbed the IV line. "Hold her head. Don't let her aspirate." Frank got his hands around the leopard's skull, feeling the fever heat through her fur. Her jaw snapped open and closed, teeth clicking together hard enough to crack. One canine caught his thumb, went through to bone. He didn't let go. "Reaction to the blood?" Tom asked, trying to hold her thrashing rear legs, "or the sepsis hitting her brain?" Emma drew something into a syringe. "Martha, time this." 8 seconds. 10. 12. The leopard's body went rigid. Her eyes rolled back, showing only white. The chirping sound came from her throat, but wrong, mechanical, like a smoke alarm with dying batteries. Emma pushed the syringe into the IV port. "Diazepam. Might stop the seizure, might stop her heart. 20 seconds. The cubs were crying, all 3 now, even the smallest in its oxygen box. High, keening wails that made Rex the police dog pace and whine. 30 seconds. The mother's heartbeat was visible through her ribs, too fast to count. Frank's blood ran down her jaw from where she'd bitten him, mixed with her foam. 40. She went limp. No breath, no movement. Emma grabbed her stethoscope, listened. Nothing. Starting compressions. She placed both hands on the leopard's chest, began pumping. The ribs flexed under the pressure. One cracked audibly. "Frank, breathe for her." "What? Mouth to nose. Now." Frank tilted the leopard's head back, sealed his mouth over her nose, forced air into her lungs, tasted blood, infection, something chemical from the medications. Her chest rose, fell. He breathed again, Emma counting. 28, 29, 30. Frank gave 2 more breaths. The leopard's tongue was purple, movement outside. Mike Thornton's cruiser sliding sideways into the yard, throwing mud. He got out running, saw the crowd, the news vans, the FBI agents putting Patterson in their vehicle. "What the hell? Mike!" Tom shouted. "Get in here!" Mike pushed through the doorway, stopped when he saw Frank breathing into a leopard's nose while Emma did chest compressions. "Jesus Christ! Hold her legs," Emma ordered. "She comes back, she'll thrash." Mike grabbed the rear legs without questioning. His radio crackled a dispatch, asking for his location. He turned it off. Emma compressed. Frank breathed. The cub's cries were getting weaker. 2 minutes, Martha said. The smallest cub coughed in its oxygen box. Blood sprayed the plastic walls. Its breathing went irregular, 3 rapid breaths. Then nothing, then gasping. "The cub's failing," Martha said. "I can't stop," Emma said, still compressing. "Frank, check the cub." Frank looked at the dying mother under his hands, at the dying cub in the box. Sophie's choice in a destroyed living room at 8 in the morning. Mike made the choice for him, kept the mother's legs pinned while Frank went to the oxygen box. The smallest cub was on its side, chest barely moving. Frank picked it up, felt how cold it was even through the towel. The cub's eyes were open but unfocused, pupils different sizes. Blood trickled from one nostril. Frank held it against his chest, felt its tiny heart flutter against his palm. Fast, too fast, then slow, too slow. "Frank," Emma called, still doing compressions. "I need you." The middle cub, the one with the broken leg, dragged itself to Frank's feet, looked up at him, holding its dying sibling, made a sound not quite a mew, not quite a chirp, a question. The smallest cub's breathing stopped. Frank rubbed its chest with his thumb. Nothing. Rubbed harder. The cub gasped, took 2 breaths, stopped again. 3 minutes, Martha said. Emma's compressions were slowing. Sweat dripped from her face onto the leopard's fur. "I can't keep this up." Mike looked at Frank. "What would your wife do?" Frank knew exactly what Sarah would do. She'd save them all somehow. But Sarah wasn't here. Sarah was in the ground behind Cascade Cemetery, and he was just a broken-down ranger who'd followed rules his whole life until now. The largest cub walked to its mother, placed one paw on her shoulder, chirped. The trust sound. Even now, even with her heart stopped, it trusted her to wake up. Epinephrine, Frank said. Sarah used it once. Raccoon that drowned, brought it back. Emma looked at him. That could cause another seizure, stroke, hemorrhage. She's already dead? Emma grabbed another syringe, loaded it. Hold her. The needle went directly into the leopard's heart, between ribs. Emma pushed the plunger, pulled out. Nothing. 5 seconds. 10. The mother leopard's body convulsed. Once, her chest expanded. A breath. Another. Irregular. Gasping, but breathing. Got her, Emma said, checking pulse. Weak, but there. The smallest cub in Frank's hands wasn't breathing at all now. He could feel its heart slowing. Spaces between, the beats getting longer. Sarah would know what to do. Sarah always knew. But Sarah wasn't here, and he was running out of time. Bobby Chin pushed through the crowd outside, carrying something. Frank. This just came by a courier, an overnight envelope, addressed to Frank Morrison, marked urgent. Frank tore it open one-handed, still holding the dying cub. Documents spilled out by SOAS transport manifests, veterinary records, and a note in handwriting he recognized. Marcus Webb, the wildlife dealer who'd abandoned them. Morrison. They're coming for the cats, not to save them. Patterson's boss is in this too. They need them dead before trial. Destroy all evidence. Get them out, now. Webb, Mike Rhee read over his shoulder. This could be bullshit. Through the window. Frank saw 3 black SUVs turn onto his property. No plates, no markings. Moving fast. Tom saw them too. Those aren't FBI. The vehicle slid to a stop, blocking the driveway. Men got out wearing civilian clothes, but moving like military. Frank counted 8. They weren't carrying tranquilizer guns. They were carrying automatic weapons. The lead man, buzz cut, neck tattoos partially visible above his collar, walked toward the house. He had the easy stride of someone who'd killed before and would again, without losing sleep. Mr. Morrison, he called, we're here to solve everyone's problem. Emma looked at Frank. Those aren't animal control. No, Frank said, they're not. The smallest cub's heart stopped. Frank felt the exact moment of flutter, a pause, then nothing, just meat cooling in his hands. The mother leopard's eye opened, found her motionless cub in Frank's arms. She knew, somehow. She knew. She tried to stand. Blood poured from her neck where the sutures had torn, her broken ribs grinding. But she got to her feet, placed herself between the door and her surviving cubs. The man with the neck tattoos reached the doorway. His jacket shifted, revealing a shoulder holster. 5 minutes, he said. Then we clean this up. Permanent? He looked at the cameras, the crowd, the media. Gas leak explosion, tragic accident, everyone saw it coming, old house, damaged pipes. Frank felt the dead cub in his hands, looked at the mother swaying on her feet, at her 2 surviving cubs. Sarah would know what to do. But Sarah wasn't here. The man checked his watch. 4 minutes, 50 seconds. That's when Frank smelled it. Gas. The gas smell was coming from under the house. Sweet, metallic. Propane from the tank they'd punctured. Frank laid the dead cub on Sarah's reading chair, the one she'd sat in during chemo when she couldn't lie flat. Its small body barely made an impression in the cushion. The mother leopard watched him cover it with a dish towel, her legs shaking from the effort of standing. Everyone out, Tom Bradley said, hand on his weapon. Now, the man with neck tattoos, Russian prison ink. Frank recognized the style, now smiled. No one's going anywhere. Gas leak, remember, happens all the time in old houses. Bobby Chen was still recording everything on his phone. The man noticed, walked over, held out his hand. Give me the phone. No. The man's jacket opened wider, Glock in the shoulder holster. I wasn't asking. Mike Thornton stepped between them. "Federal crime to threaten a witness? What witness? I'm just a concerned citizen responding to a gas leak." The smell was getting stronger. Frank could taste it now, coating his tongue. The mother leopard swayed, caught herself. The drug cocktail and blood loss were hitting hard. Her surviving cubs pressed against her legs. 3 minutes, the Russian said. Frank pulled out his phone, started typing. Not Facebook this time. Email. To everyone on Sarah's contact list, the one she'd kept for her rescue network, sanctuaries, veterinarians, wildlife advocates across the country. Help needed now. GPS coordinates attached. Amur leopards, mother and cubs, armed men planning. The Russian grabbed for his phone. Frank threw it to Martha, who threw it to Bobby, who hit send before the Russian could reach him. "Oops," Bobby said. The Russian's face darkened. He pulled out his own phone, spoke rapid Russian. Frank caught a few words. Military Russian was different from prison Russian, but some words were universal. Problem. Eliminate. Now. Through the window. Frank saw movement in the trees. More men, carrying gas cans. They were going to accelerate the leak, make sure the explosion took out everything house. Leopards, evidence. Emma grabbed her medical bags. "We're leaving. Tom, help me move the mother." "She can't be moved," the Russian said. "Natural gas explosion. Very tragic. No survivors." The mother leopard took a step toward him. Blood ran down her leg from where the IV had torn out. Her lips pulled back, showing teeth designed to crush vertebrae. The Russian's hand moved to his weapon. Mike's hand moved faster, covering the Russian's. "Don't! You're a cop! You can't—" "I'm off duty. And right now, I'm a concerned citizen, too." Frank smelled gasoline now, mixing with the propane. They were dousing the foundation. The crowd outside was backing away, some running for their cars. But the news cameras kept rolling. The mother leopard took another step. Her rear leg buckled, but she caught herself. The largest cub followed her. Then the one with the broken leg, dragging itself forward. They formed a line facing the Russian. 30 seconds, he said. That's when the helicopters appeared. Not a 1, 3, military grade, no markings, coming in low and fast. The Russian's phone rang. He answered, his face going pale. "Da, niet, ponamayu." He lowered the phone, stared at Frank. "Who did you email?" Frank didn't know. Sarah's list had hundreds of contacts. He'd just hit send all. The lead helicopter settled in the yard, rotor wash blowing the gasoline smell away. The door opened. A woman stepped out, 60 years old, silver hair and a tight bun, wearing a suit that cost more than Frank's truck. Dr. Patricia Vance, director of the International Species Survival Alliance. Frank recognized her from Sarah's photos. They'd worked together on snow leopard conservation. Patricia had spoken at Sarah's funeral, flew in from Geneva just for the service. She walked past the Russian like he didn't exist and straight to Frank. "Mr. Morrison, Sarah told me about you." She looked at the mother leopard, the blood, the shaking legs. "How long since the seizure?" 6 minutes, Emma said. "Blood type? Unknown. We gave her universal canine. Might work, might not." Patricia pulled out her phone. "I need a veterinary trauma team at these coordinates." "Oh, it's a full surgical setup. Now?" The Russian stepped forward. "Ma'am, you don't understand." Patricia turned on him. "I understand perfectly. You work for Dmitry Volkov. He's been trafficking endangered species through legal conservation programs. These leopards were supposed to reach our facility in Oregon. They never arrived." "You can't prove." "Marcus Webb is in FBI custody. He's documented everything, including your boss's order to eliminate these animals before they could be DNA tested." She smiled, cold. "Did you know each of these leopards has a genetic marker worth $12 million to conservation programs. Their bloodline is irreplaceable. The second helicopter was unloading people in FBI windbreakers. Real FBI, not whatever the Russian was. The mother leopard fell. Her front legs just folded a car. She hit the floor hard, head striking the wood. Emma dropped beside her, checking pulse. "She's in V-fib." Patricia was already moving. "Get the defibrillator from the helicopter. Frank, help me turn her." They rolled the leopard onto her side. Her eyes were open but unfocused. The cubs were crying, pawing at their mother's still form. An FBI agent brought the defibrillator. Patricia charged it. No hesitation despite the $1,000 suit. "Everyone back." The shock made the leopard's body jump. Nothing. Again, another shock. The heart monitor showed that flat line. "Manual compressions," Patricia ordered. She knelt, started pumping the leopard's chest with precision that spoke of experience. "Frank, the cubs need to see this." "What? They need to see us trying. It matters for their psychological development." "Trust formation. Sarah's research proved it." Frank brought the two surviving cubs closer. They watched Patricia work on their mother, their cries shifting to that chirping sound, the trust call. The Russian was backing toward his vehicle. Mike Thornton and two FBI agents blocked his path. "Going somewhere?" Mike asked. Patricia continued compressions. "Webb's testimony puts your boss away for 20 years. But you're just muscle. Tell us where the other animals are. You might walk." The Russian's jaw clenched. "Lawyer, your choice." Patricia checked the monitor. Still flat. "Emma, another round of EP." Emma injected directly into the heart again. Patricia resumed compressions. The mother leopard's tail twitched. "Hold on," Frank said. "Look." The tail twitched again. Then her rear paw. The monitor showed a blip, another. "Irregular, but there." "She's back," Emma said. "Barely, but back." The Russian's phone buzzed. He looked at it, face going white. He said something in Russian that Frank translated as approximately, "Fuck." Patricia stood brushing dirt off her suit. That would be your boss discovering his Cayman Islands accounts are frozen, all 16 of them. Through the window, Frank saw more vehicles arriving, not enforcement this time. Veterinary vans, mobile surgical units, an actual ambulance retrofitted for large animals. The mother leopard's eye opened, found Frank, blinked once, slow. "The smallest cub didn't make it," Frank told her, not caring how insane it was to talk to a leopard. "I'm sorry." She turned her head, looked at the chair where the small body lay under the towel, made a sound, not quite a chirp, not quite a moan. Grief, maybe, or just exhaustion. Her surviving cubs crawled to her, curled against her belly. She managed to curve her tail around them, containing them, protecting them, even now. Patricia knelt beside them. "The genetic tests will prove these are from the Geographical breeding program, stolen 3 years ago as cubs, sold to a private collector who couldn't handle them once they grew. Webb was supposed to make them disappear. Instead, he chained them in a storm." Frank said, "No. Webb was transporting them to Volkov's ranch. The storm hit. Webb panicked, abandoned them. You found them in 12 hours before Volkov's men would have—" She looked at the Russian. "They were going to burn them alive, make it look like the warehouse burned down naturally." The mother leopard was watching Patricia now, pupils dilating and contracting as she fought to stay conscious. "Sarah saved over 200 animals," Patricia said. "Did you know that she kept records of everyone? These leopards, their mother was one of Sarah's rescues 10 years ago. Different trafficking ring, same type of situation." Frank felt something cold in his chest. Sarah knew their mother. Sarah bottle-fed their mother. There are photos. Patricia pulled out a tablet, showed him. Sarah, 10 years younger, holding a leopard cub, the same spot pattern as the mother on his floor, Genetic memory is remarkable, Patricia said. This leopard trusted you because her mother was saved by someone who smelled like you. Sarah's scent on her clothes you kept in this house. That's why she didn't attack. The mother leopard closed her eyes. Her breathing was steadying. The drugs, the transfusions, the shocks all catching up. Frank looked at the dead cub on the chair, at its surviving siblings, at their mother fighting to live on his destroyed floor. What happens to them now? Patricia stood. That depends on something else Webb told us. She pulled up another document on her tablet. Financial records. Patterson's name, but more. Deposits, withdrawals, a clear pattern. Patterson wasn't the only one. This goes up to the governor's office. Frank heard vehicles leaving the Russian and his men being taken away. But more were arriving. He recognized one Dr. James Harrison from the San Diego Zoo, the man who was supposed to receive these leopards originally. Harrison walked in, saw the mother leopard, immediately went pale. My God, is that LP 4429? Patricia said, the last fertile female of her line. Harrison's hands shook as he pulled out his phone. She was supposed to be bred with our male. Their cubs would have saved the subspecies. She already bred, Patricia said. These cubs are even more valuable. Their father was the last wild-caught male before he died last year. Frank did the math. These weren't just leopards. They were the future of an entire species, and someone had chained them in a storm to die. Mr. Morrison, Patricia said, there's something else. Something Webb mentioned about why they had to eliminate these specific animals. She showed him another photo. A leopard cub, maybe 6 months old, with a small tracking chip being implanted in its neck, the same kind Frank had found in the mother's infected wound. This chip, Patricia said, it's not for tracking. It's for something else, something worth killing them all to keep secret. Frank looked at the chip remains in his sink, then at the mother leopard. What's on the chip? Patricia's face was grim. Evidence that would end more than just a trafficking ring, evidence of something much worse. The mother leopard's eye opened again, focused on Patricia, like she knew exactly what was on that chip and why so many people wanted her dead. Patricia pulled latex gloves from her pocket, walked to Frank's kitchen sink, where the destroyed chip lay in metallic powder. She scraped some into an evidence bag. The chips recorded everything: audio, video, GPS, every sale, every buyer, every official who took bribes. She sealed the bag. Webb kept backups, 20 terabytes of data on a server in Vancouver. The mother leopard was being lifted onto a specialized gurney by the veterinary team. Her eyes tracked Frank as they worked, pupils still uneven from the head trauma. The two surviving cubs clung to each other in Martha's arms, crying in pitches that made Rex the police dog whine. Dr. Harrison supervised the lifting. Careful with her neck. The infection has probably weakened the vertebrae. Frank followed them out. His yard looked like a disaster zone. Helicopters, emergency vehicles, 30 people in various uniforms. Mrs. Henderson from the library was arguing with an FBI agent about her right to film. Jack Paulson had brought coffee in thermoses, passing cups to anyone who'd take them. The mother leopard was loaded into the mobile surgical unit through the window. Frank could see them hooking up monitors, IV lines, preparing surgical tools. Her tail hung limp off the gurney's edge. She needs surgery now, Harrison said. The broken ribs, the infected wound, possible organ damage. Even if she survives, she might never. She'll survive. Patricia said, You can't know that. Patricia looked at Frank. Sarah always said the ones who've suffered most fight hardest to live. For their babies. The cubs were being examined by another vet. The one with the broken leg cried when they touched the fracture. The larger one kept trying to crawl toward the surgical unit where its mother was. "Mr. Morrison?" An FBI agent approached. "We need your statement. Everything from finding them." "Later," Patricia said. "He's going with the Leopards." "Ma'am, that's not protocol." "I don't care about protocol." She turned to Frank. "Sarah's notes say the mother needs a familiar presence during medical procedures. Someone she trusts. That's you." Frank looked at his destroyed house, at the churned mud of his yard, at the space where his old life used to be. "I need to get something first." He went back inside, stepped over scattered books and broken furniture to Sarah's reading chair. The smallest cub lay where he'd placed it, covered by the dish towel. Frank picked up the small body, weighed nothing, already cold. Outside, he showed it to the mother leopard through the surgical unit's window. Her eye found the still form, held it for 3 seconds, then closed. When she opened it again, she was looking past the body to Frank's face. He understood. She couldn't mourn now, not with 2 cubs still alive. The grief would come later, if there was a later. The ride to Emma's clinic took 20 minutes. Frank sat in the surgical unit with the mother leopard while Emma and Harrison worked to stabilize her. Her temperature kept dropping despite heating blankets. Her heart rate would stabilize, then race, then dropped to almost nothing. "Losing her," Harrison said, injecting something into the IV. The mother's eye found Frank. He put his hand near her paw, not touching, just close. She moved one toe, pressed it against his finger. The monitor steadied. "Keep doing whatever you're doing," Emma said. Frank talked, quiet, steady, the same tone he'd used with Sarah during her bad nights. Told the leopard about the sanctuary where she'd go, about the safety waiting for her cubs, about how Sarah had saved her mother 10 years ago in a situation just like this one. The mother's breathing evened out. Her heart rate stabilized at something approaching normal. They pulled into Emma's clinic. The surgery was already prepped. Patricia's team had called ahead. They wheeled the mother straight into OR. "You can't come in," Emma said, pulling on surgical scrubs. "But there's a window." Frank stood at the observation window for 6 hours, watched them clean and debride the infected wound, pin the broken ribs, repair the torn muscle in her hip. The mother flatlined twice. They brought her back twice. Mike Thornton showed up around hour 3, still in yesterday's uniform. "Thought you could use this." He handed Frank a thermos of coffee and a gas station sandwich. "Any word on the investigation?" 16 arrests so far, including the governor's chief of staff. Mike leaned against the wall. "My captain wants to give me a commendation for helping. Can you believe that shit yesterday? I could have lost my job." Through the window, Harrison was suturing something internal, hands steady despite working for hours. "The cubs?" Frank asked. "Martha took them to the emergency foster lady, the one who takes orphaned bear cubs. They're eating. The one with the broken leg needs surgery. But they're waiting to see if—" Mike didn't finish. "If their mother survived." She did. Barely. When they brought her out of surgery, she couldn't lift her head, couldn't focus her eyes, but she was breathing on her own. And when they brought her cubs to her, she made that chirping sound, weak but unmistakable. The cubs crawled against her, careful of the bandages and the tubes. She managed to curve her tail around them, containing them the way she had in Frank's destroyed house. "She'll need months of recovery," Harrison said. "Maybe longer. The hip damage alone." "We have time," Patricia said. She was on her phone constantly, coordinating. The sanctuary in Oregon was preparing a specialized enclosure. Physical therapists who worked with injured tigers were flying in. The surviving cubs would need surgery, vaccinations, careful monitoring. "What about Frank?" Martha asked. She'd been there all day, refusing to leave. Patricia looked at him. "What about you? Your house is destroyed. Your job? I was retiring anyway. Sarah left you her life insurance, never touched it, according to the papers we found." Frank thought about the $200,000 sitting in an account he couldn't bear to look at. Blood money. It had felt like payment for losing her. "The sanctuary needs an on-site caretaker," Patricia said. "Someone who knows these specific animals, who they trust." "I'm not qualified." "Sarah thought you were. She wrote about it." Patricia pulled out a letter, Sarah's handwriting, dated a week before she died. "Frank, if you're reading this, it means you found animals who needed help, and knowing you helped them despite the rules. The sanctuary in Oregon has a cabin. Patricia knows to offer it to you if you ever need to start over. The animals we save, they save us back. You'll see. S." 3 months later, Frank's alarm went off at 5 a.m. He rolled out of bed in the caretaker's cabin, made instant coffee in the same unwashed mug he'd brought from Washington. Outside the window, morning fog rolled through the Douglas firs. The sanctuary covered 60 acres of protected land. Frank walked the main path, checking cameras, fence lines, the automated feeding stations. His knee still locked up in the cold, but the walking helped. The leopards were in the far enclosure, the one with natural caves and a stream. Frank found them where they always were at dawn, on the flat rock that caught first light. The mother was lying on her side, the surgery scars visible through her growing back fur. She'd never walked normally. The hip damage was permanent, but she could walk, climb a little, hunt the rabbits they released weekly. She wasn't the mother leopard anymore. The staff had named her Hope. Frank still couldn't bring himself to call her anything. The surviving cubs, now the size of German shepherds, were playing in the stream. The one with the formerly broken leg had a permanent limp, but didn't seem to notice. They'd learned to hunt, to climb, to be leopards, despite their traumatic start. Frank sat on the bench Sarah's memorial fund had paid for. The plaque read, "For Sarah Morrison, who saved them first." The mother leopard Hope lifted her head, looked at him. Same golden eyes, but calmer now. No longer desperate, she made the chirping sound, soft. Mike visited monthly, brought his daughter Amy. She was learning to draw, spent hours sketching the leopards. Martha sent care packages of cookies that Frank shared with the staff. Bobby's photos of the rescue had won a Pulitzer, donated the prize money to the sanctuary. Patterson got 15 years. His boss, 20. The Russian turned state's evidence. Witness protection somewhere in Montana. Volkov was awaiting trial in federal court. His animal trafficking empire dismantled. Webb served 6 months, then disappeared. Frank sometimes wondered if he'd known the leopards would be found, if leaving them at Frank's section of forest wasn't entirely accidental. But that was giving him too much credit. The smallest cub was buried under a cedar tree behind Frank's cabin. He'd planted wildflowers that Sarah had loved. They'd bloom next month. Dr. Harrison visited weekly, monitoring the breeding program. The cubs would be vital to species survival when they matured. Their genetics were literally irreplaceable. But for now, they were just young leopards learning to live. Frank's phone buzzed. Patricia, texting from Geneva. Another rescue needed, this time snow leopards in Kazakhstan. Wanted to know if Frank could consult. He texted back, "Send details." The sun crested the trees, hit the rock where the leopards rested. The mother stretched, favoring her bad hip, but moving, always moving forward, despite the damage. Frank finished his coffee, stood to continue his rounds. The mother leopard watched him go, then settled back with her cubs. No dramatic farewell, no mystical connection. Just an old ranger and a damaged leopard who'd saved each other without meaning to, living quietly in the aftermath. Sometimes that was enough. Sometimes that was everything, connecting hearts. I tell you this story not because it's extraordinary, but because it's not. Every day, in small towns across this country, someone chooses compassion over protocol. Frank Morrison was no hero, just a tired man who found creatures suffering and couldn't walk away. That's what Sarah knew about him, about all of us. When the rules say, let them die, and our hearts say, help them live, we become most human in our defiance. The leopards didn't need Frank's love. They needed his action. He didn't need redemption. He needed to remember who he was beneath 40 years of following orders. Sometimes saving something else is how we save ourselves. Disclaimer: this story was inspired by wildlife rescue accounts and created solely for entertainment purposes. It does not condone, encourage, or promote any form of violence, illegal wildlife trafficking, or harmful behavior toward animals or humans. All characters and events are products of the author's imagination. Any resemblance to real persons, living or dead, or actual events is purely coincidental. The story advocates for legal wildlife conservation and proper channels for animal rescue. Always contact appropriate authorities and licensed professionals when encountering injured or abandoned wildlife.